Today we're going to talk about life, having a prosperous life, why we don't have a prosperous life, why things just don't seem to be working out right when we feel like we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. And so we're going to get in deep with this today, but kind of from a spiritual perspective, but not religious, okay? And when I say spiritual, I don't mean spiritual in a religious kind of way. I mean spiritual, I want to look at spirituality in a way that we haven't really looked at it before. I want to look at it as though there are invisible laws that we are governed by, that we are moved by. And many of these invisible laws we simply take for granted, okay? And so we maybe look at it from like a gravity perspective. You know, gravity is scientific, and we kind of understand how gravity works. Thanks to Isaac Newton, and maybe a little bit of Einstein mixed in there as well. But the reality is we don't know how these things work. We just know that they work, okay? And so we've accepted that as science, we've accepted that as real, even as tangible, even though we can't really see these things. We see the result of them. But what I want to suggest today, maybe just a different way of looking at it like gravity is a spiritual law. Anything unseen is spiritual. I just want for this conversation to be looking at it like that, okay? And so then we can just grasp the concept of gravity from a spiritual perspective, that it's not a positive thing, it's not a negative thing, but it's something real that is in effect in everyone's life, okay? Whether it's your individual life, your family life, your community life, your nation's life, the world's life. Gravity is there, and it's invisible, okay? And so what I want to talk about then today is this concept of sowing and reaping. You reap what you sow. You know, what you do comes back to you. What goes around comes around. A chicken's coming home to roost. There is this thing called karma. And we've named it so many things. And oftentimes we use it sort of as a condemnation method, especially when someone is getting over on us in a negative or an evil way. We want to say, well, it's going to come back on you. The chickens are going to come home to roost and all that. But you know, chickens coming home to roost isn't really a bad thing if you're hungry, right? It's a blessing, okay? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, because I believe that this concept that we're going to explore is the reason why life doesn't seem to be going well in many of our lives, and the reason why it seems to be going well in other people's lives around us. Okay? It's this spiritual thing called sowing and reaping, not a religious thing, simply an invisible thing that is at work, okay, in each of our lives. And what I want to suggest today is just to grasp the concept that everything in life responds to this concept of sowing and reaping. In other words, what you do will come back to you, good or bad, okay? And that's what we want to focus on today, because we don't even want to look at it as good or bad. We just want to understand that everything does come back to you. And what I want to suggest then is that there's a purpose behind it, okay? It's not a condemning force. It's not even an affirming force. It's simply a reality, just like gravity. Gravity isn't condemning. Gravity isn't affirming. Gravity is simply what it is. And it can work for you, you know, if you want somebody to throw you the basketball, or it can work against you. If you're walking and you slip and fall off a bridge, you know, it's just there. And so what I want to suggest then, as spiritual beings, as we are moved, as we are animated by something that we can't see, I want to suggest that we function in this spiritual realm, that this concept of sowing and reaping is just a reality of our lives, just as gravity is, okay? And there's a biblical scripture that gives us to understand that our footsteps are being ordered by God, it says, okay? And what I want to suggest then is yes, our footsteps are being ordered. And whether you want to call it God, or whether you call it the spiritual part of even our creation makeup, part of our DNA, however we came here, if by the hand of a divine force and all, that would be God. And what I'm saying is this idea of ordering our footsteps is intrinsic in every human being. And the purpose of our footsteps being ordered is to bring us to the place that we're supposed to be, the place that we're supposed to end up, the right place. You know, understanding then that our relationship, we are not an island unto ourselves, but we are a relationship to everybody on this planet. Began when we stepped into this planet, you know, from our mother's womb, and there was the family, you know, and then there was the classmates, and there was the community, and there was the city, and the state, and the nation, and the world. You know, we are interacting, you know, with each other constantly. And so we recognize that our footsteps being ordered are keeping us going in the right direction, doing the right things as it pertains to each other, you know, as humanity and all. And as we begin to deviate from the path that we should be walking, here comes that sowing and reaping thing. If you're deviating from a good path, you're going to reap the reward, or the result of walking the bad way, or walking the right way. Or if you're doing not good to people, or you're doing good to people, you're moving down this path. This is how your footsteps are being ordered. Your footsteps are being ordered to get you to that place that you're supposed to be. Now admittedly, there are, I'm sure, many variations of what your life could be. But how you get there is what determines how your walk is going to be buffered or encouraged, okay? I know that's kind of heavy, okay? But what I want to suggest is, it's like our interactions with everything that you do, you're going to reap what you sow, okay? Whether it's the food you eat, okay? Whether you eat food that's healthy or food that's not healthy, you're going to reap what you've sown, what you've ingested. Whether it's exercise or not exercise, whether it's going to work or not going to work, whether it's getting an education or not getting an education, whether it's getting that buzz or not getting that buzz. Everything that you do, there's going to be a response. Whatever you do, you're going to reap what you've sown, good and bad, okay? And really, that's the bottom line to all of our lives. The problem is that we don't see the correlation to things that are happening that are not working for us, or that seem to be happening against us, being directly related to some of the things that we're doing, okay? It's like when we use the concept of sowing and reaping, it's the idea of planting a seed, and what grows from that seed is basically what type seed you planted. But hardly ever and almost never does the seed resemble the thing that is grown, the thing that is harvested, okay? And so what I'm suggesting is in our lives as well, we're suffering through so many things. Well, I didn't do anything to that person, or I didn't do anything wrong in this situation here, but we don't realize that the reaping is coming from something altogether unfamiliar to us that's directly related, okay? And so that's why it's very important, and it's very important for us to be good people. It's very important for us to be good people, because there is this concept. Look, and even the ordering of footsteps in itself, it's a positive thing. It's a positive thing, but it's always recalibrating. It's always readjusting, okay? We come into this world as innocent babies, with so much potential. The potential to be anything that you could even imagine. The potential to be a multi-billionaire. The potential to be a chicken thief. We have potential. And depending on the largest potential that we have, the decisions that we make all throughout life, and some of the decisions that were made for us, the environment that we were born into, the parents that we have, the family that we have, the ideology of the community that we're being raised in, could have positive or negative impacts on our potential, okay? Because all throughout our lives, this whole concept of reaping, sowing and reaping is going on, which is ordering our footsteps. And we talk about ordering our footsteps. I want to look at it like GPS, okay? Like I'm trying to get from this place to the store, maybe 5 miles across town. And so I plug the store address into my GPS, and it starts taking me that way. But then I take a turn that I shouldn't have taken. What GPS isn't going to be condemning me. It's just going to recalibrate and saying, okay, now it's going to take 5 minutes longer to get to this particular destination. Or it could say, now it's going to take 5 minutes less. I'm sure you've seen that at times. But so there's a particular way that we're going, a way that we should go, and we may deviate. Deviate, the ordering of our footsteps will simply recalibrate and recalculate and just give us the new time that it's going to take to get there. Okay? And so we recognize then that the deviation in this analogy that I'm giving is doing the wrong things, or even doing things that might not seem normal or might not seem traditionally acceptable in the society in which you're in, but could take you to your destination quicker. Okay, so our entire lives are built upon sowing and reaping. You know, what we do, how it comes back to us, how we interact with people. That goes from the foods we eat to the exercises, to how you treat your waiter or waitress, to how you treat immigrants that are fleeing, you know, tragedy and horrific situations in their own nations. Even to the point of how you treat your employees or how you treat your employer. Everything that you do, how you treat your kids, how you treat your spouse. I mean, I can go on and on because it's everything, absolutely everything in life. And so we're constantly in this place of sowing and reaping. Okay, this invisible hand, like Adam Smith's invisible economic hand. Well, this is our invisible ordering of our footsteps. And we must recognize that we never get away with anything, good or bad. There's always going to be an effect. And so then we must consciously recognize this reality that we're functioning in, this spiritual reality, and begin doing everything that we can that is right. Being good to everyone. I know that's hard sometimes. But doing the best that we can, because the reality is it's not for them. I mean, it is for them, but the response, the result is going to be in our own lives, okay? That's why, you know, you can go to church and hear these preachers talking about giving the money, giving this money, it'll come back to you, press it down, shake it together, run it over, and all this kind of stuff, coercion to get you to give that money. Well, the reality is it really does work. So it doesn't really matter the motivation or the agenda of the individual encouraging you to do this thing. They might simply see themselves getting enriched by your giving. But your giving is also going to have a response. Now, it's important to recognize what you're giving to. Politics today. If you're giving to an individual or a particular party who's functioning in a way that is negative, this whole sowing and reaping thing again, even though it might seem right, you have to look at it carefully, because if you're sowing into an entity or an organization that is functioning in a negative way, you're taking on their reaping as well, okay? That's why it's important. You want to judge? Do you want to judge a political party? You want to judge a religious group? You want to judge any organization that you might be thinking about joining, even if it's just a social group or a social gathering or whatever? Look and see how happy the people are that are functioning within that organization. If they're not happy, they're reaping a negativity for one reason or another, and that would be a group you would want to stay away from. Look at people who are happy. Look at people who are happy doing well for other people, okay? I look at churches, man. I remember coming up in church. You know, I'm a minister in the Christian church, but I'm like a progressive, I'm what I call a progressive liberal conservative. Because I don't do anything. I don't do stuff. You know, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't cuss very often, you know. But on the other hand, I'm not out here condemning folks that choose to, okay? Because each of us are responsible and are recipients of reaping and sowing. So for me, back in the day, I used to drink way too much. I used to get that buzz way too much. You know, you probably have friends that when you all go out, there's that one that just does way more than everybody else, you know. Could be you, right? Well, that was me. And so I found for myself, it'd be better if I just not do that stuff. I'm kind of not really disciplined in that area. So if I find something I like, I just do it overboard. So if I find a drink that I like an alcoholic beverage, I'll probably do more than most folks. If I find any kind of buzz that I like, I'll probably do it more than most folks. And there is a reaping, okay? There is a reaping. So I find myself not doing things because I recognize that there is no good into that. There's no good reason to do that. Even like smoking weed, come on now. You're messing with your brain. That doesn't make any sense. So you're reaping something. You're smoking weed. You're taking smoke into your lungs, man. That can't be good. You know. So you're going to reap something from that. So I'm just saying this. That's the way we have to look through life. You know, recognizing that everything that we do is going to have an effect on our lives. So we must strive to do right things, and must strive not to align ourselves with organizations, you know, or people who are doing negative things, because we will take on their offense and begin reaping what they're sowing, and that's not good. As individual human beings, I mean, we do kind of mess up sometimes, you know. We might say things or do things, you know, that we know you know, after the fact that we shouldn't have done, and there is still an accounting for that. And I'm just suggesting that we have enough issues of our own than to be aligning ourselves with other folks who are actually doing negative things. Don't do that. Don't do that. We have friends. We have acquaintances. We have family members. We have organizations that are negative, that are sowing negative. We have to be very careful not to align ourselves with those people, with those organizations. And what's most unfortunate is that the more we're around people like this, the constant, you know, around people like this, we begin to get the attitude. We don't begin to see the toxicity of certain folks if we've been around them a while, and we begin to take on. Oftentimes we take on those characters, their personalities, and then we begin reaping. We continue reaping negativities rather than positively. And all that reaping is simply your inner spiritual desire, less than conscious, but spiritual desire, to get you on the right path. So if you're deviating from a good path and negatives start happening to you, it's not punishment. It's more like trying to get you back on the right path. That's it. So sometimes our lives just totally unravel. Sometimes, like say drug use, you know, it feels kind of good, the buzz, but kind of, you know, then well, I don't need to do this. I'm not going to take care of that. I'm not going to pay this bill. Well, I don't think I'll go to work today. I think I'll call in sick today. End up losing my job. Well, they just spiral. So recognize as negativities are popping into your life, begin to self-examine and be critical of yourself. Don't buy into stuff. That's what I am not. And I can tell you that right now. When I was younger, I didn't believe that. I believed that you could do anything you wanted to do, and logically, that's not going to have an effect on anything happening in your life. What's going to happen is going to happen anyway. And I had a buddy that would always be telling me, no, Marty, man, you got to do right, you know, because it comes back around. And that was totally ridiculous to me. But even during that time, that buddy of mine, he was always prospering, doing real well. I was okay, but I wasn't as okay as he was. And there's a connection there. There's a connection between the life that you live and the responses that are coming back in your life. And this holds true with every aspect of life. And you can even see it on the world stage. You know it as an individual. You've seen it in your own life. And I think you've probably seen it in the lives of your family members and possibly in your community, maybe even in your state. We've seen some states recently, you might want to attribute to politics, but we've seen entire states, maybe farming regions, that are going under because the farmers decided to align themselves with groups that were not positive about other human beings. And they took on the reaping. That's kind of, and they're farmers. But they took on the reaping of the negativity of the organization that they attached themselves to. And the organization that they attached themselves to wasn't, the intent as far as they were concerned wasn't to impact them negatively, but they knew that organization was going to impact other people, i.e. immigrants, you know, and other people negatively. And that was okay with them. But what I'm suggesting is you're going to reap what you sow. And so even an entire state. Then you can have entire nations. You know, you can look at a nation like Iraq. And those people, a lot of innocent people lost their lives terribly. But the leadership, you know, the leadership of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, now he may not have had anything at all to do with weapons of mass destruction, and he probably didn't. I didn't think he did all from the beginning. But the reality is he wasn't a good guy. And so he had to reap what he was sowing, even if it was from a place that had nothing to do with what he was doing. He was harmful to many of his people. And so he had to reap what he sowed. And maybe even if the charges were trumped up by the United States, that's not the issue in this spiritual reality. You reap what you sow. And so the entire nation had to suffer. And how many hundred thousands of innocent citizens had to die simply because they were of that nation. And then how it works is the charges were trumped up by our country, and then there is a reaping that has to come to our country as well, simply because of what we did. It just never ends. And I look at it like we have to be aware. We have to be aware. Our country is the United States. We have an issue that I believe is going to be corrected. It's going to be like a root canal. I believe there's an issue underneath that's going to have to be scraped out, okay? Because this nation, our nation, was born on the genocide of Native Americans, okay? This nation was birthed on the enslavement of Africans. I saw a politician recently, I'm not going to say which one, but on TV, and he was saying, that this is our nation. And people come here from other nations, from the nations we built. Well, yeah, this nation may have been built by the people who are current Americans, but what was it built upon, okay? Was it built upon the graves of other people? Was it built upon the sufferings and the murders and the deaths and the genocide and the enslavement? How was this nation built? And that will give you an understanding of the reaping that is due, okay? Now I want to give you some hope, okay? Because it's important to recognize that none of us are perfect, that we do fail, and oftentimes we fail. We don't realize the ramifications, okay? But when you do, it's important to admit it. It's important to own it. It's important to rectify the situation. Now, you don't have to go about apologizing to everybody. I don't believe that's necessary. But you do have to change. You need to change. You should change. Because you're going to continue reaping what you're sowing, good and bad, and to keep you on the track that you're supposed to be on. It's like the whole concept of your footsteps being ordered and this sowing and reaping thing. It's like the internal spiritual compass that is honed in on the destination you're supposed to be on, the road and the destination you're supposed to be on, and so whatever deviates, it's going to be moving you to get back there. So you're not going to be seemingly rewarded for your ill doings. That's why you have people. The misunderstanding is you can have a rich guy that has built his wealth on doing things that he shouldn't have been doing, right? And he's not happy. And so that's why there is such an indulgence in so many things, trying to find satisfaction, trying to find peace, whether it's certain kind of drugs, certain kinds of alcohol, an abundance of women, underage girls, whatever it is, the individual is moved toward getting fast cars, homes everywhere, really nice, because there is an insatiable desire for satisfaction. And this individual doesn't realize why there is no satisfaction. Satisfaction isn't that expensive. All satisfaction means for each of us, for any of us, is simply to be doing the right thing in whatever environment we are functioning in. And so the next time you don't tip your waitress, or the next time you give the waiter a real hard time for nothing that waiter is really at fault about, the next time you decide not to tip your waiter or your waitress, even the little things like that, you reap what you sow. And a big negativity are fathers and mothers, those of us that have children that are watching us, and we're doing stuff that we shouldn't be doing. How many alcoholics do you run into whose parents were alcoholics, or whose mother or father was an alcoholic? Or whatever the ill, there is a transference simply because the child is watching. The child is taking notes. And without even realizing it themselves, they have put themselves in this path of negatively reaping simply because they're only doing what they've watched their mom or dad do. Okay? It's very important. It's very important for nations to recognize this as well. And they don't. So what I'm suggesting is, even if you're dwelling within a nation that might be on the precipice of collapse because of reaping what they've sown, shore yourself up. Begin to examine yourself and challenge yourself and make sure you're doing yourself to the best of your ability. You will begin to prosper within yourself. See, all human beings come into this world, now this is my opinion, with the potential to be extremely prosperous, good, and successful. Okay? But based on the environment that they're born into and the experiences that they have through life will dictate what direction that individual is going. Okay? And so I'm just suggesting that we just need to go back to the basics. And now I'm talking to black people right now in America and all over the world. Because I've been speaking to this community for about a month or so now. That this nation is getting ready to go. This is America getting ready to go through some mess. Okay? Because of the sowing and the reaping that was inevitable. It's been going on here for almost 400 years. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing. It was an issue of black on black crime, black and all this stuff, all the rhetoric. But now we're seeing white people killing white people, white people killing white, far right activists and all. White people killing white policemen. White people killing school students in school. White people killing. And white people killing other people of color as well. But we see this spike in the white community, and what that represents is the undergirding of this nation, that was built on the blood and the sweat and the tears and the suffering of so many. And this is where that root canal is coming in, because we are at a place of beginning to experience, or at least recognize, the reaping of a nation that was sown in its birthing tremendous misery, tremendous pain, tremendous heartache, hurt, and we're beginning to see the reaping, the unraveling. Now there's a spiritual scripture, that's a religious scripture, that speaks of a house that's built on sand, that it won't stand the test of time when a strong storm comes blowing against it. But then there is the nation that is built on stone that will withstand any storm. And that will be the end result. But before that comes that sand foundation, that negative, that evil foundation has to be ripped away. And that's what we're going through now. So now this is what I'm sharing with all you good people. With all you people that are striving to be good. And I want to focus particularly to the black people in this nation, the brown people in this nation, the red people in this nation. Anybody feeling oppressed in this nation needs to recognize this is your time to get yourself together. This is your time to put down the joint, to put down the alcohol, to put down the immorality. Anything that you're doing that can bring negativity onto yourself. Because when this institution of America begins to crumble, I mean, it's not crumbling to its end. It's like that phoenix that comes to a place of destruction, and then out of the ashes is born that new creation. And so when this issue hits this nation, and we're seeing the tremendous unraveling now, by the time the smoke clears and the dust settles, you be new and improved, and you can step into your rightful place. So challenge yourself. Be critical about yourself. What are you putting your hand to? What are your attitudes? What are your attitudes toward other people, and how are you responding? Are you responding in good and in love to people, or in harshness and hate to other people? Because you're going to reap what you're sowing. You've been reaping what you're sowing. Your entire life has been reaping what you're sowing. And I'm not preaching theory right now. I'm a guy, and I'll tell my story. I was raised in church, and I saw so much stuff that spoke to the young man that this couldn't possibly be true. I saw racism. I saw infidelities. I saw all kinds of immoralities, in the church. I left home at 17, joined the military. It wasn't long before I was an atheist for like a decade. So I had this epiphany one night at home by myself. And I realized the life that I was living, that wasn't the guy I wanted to be anymore. And I changed that night, that morning. And I went to my apartment, got up in the morning, went to my apartment. I picked out everything in my apartment that I loved. I had stuff from the Orient. I had chess set from Asia. I had pictures that was from Korea, pictures and things and artifacts from Japan, from other places overseas, and I had jazz album collection, switchblade collection, I had plants, I was growing my own, everything. I was 28 then, I'll be 67 this year, 2025. And I gathered trophies, baseball, bowling, karate trophies, everything. Gathered it all up, took it all to the dumpster, threw all that stuff away that day. Those things didn't define me, and I had defined them that they had defined me. And it wasn't. I realized I was a different person. And I began trying and attempting to do the right things. Do good things, do positive things. To other people, to my body. and today I am in a place that I would have never imagined I could have been. And I'm simply suggesting, put away all those destructive things, begin walking a positive walk the best that you can. And that path, your footsteps will be ordering you to a place of abundance, a place of peace of mind, a place of happiness, a place of influence. And to those children, those people around you that you might be influencing, they will benefit. And they'll be better than you. Simply because they're looking at you and watching you and becoming like you, less, some of you, that residue from the previous world that probably still dwells within you somewhere. And that's what I want to leave you with. I want to leave you with this encouragement. It's encouragement that definitely know that whatever you sow, you're going to reap. Whatever you do is coming back to you. Be the best that you can. Whatever you desire in your life, just be that to other people. And you will reap that. And you'll be in great shape. And when all else is crumbling down, falling around before you, you're still standing. And when it begins to build back up around you, you'll be standing even stronger. How's that?